Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Thursday's Theology. My name is Jeff, and I'm your host. And before we get started today, I actually had an announcement for all of you, and that is we have launched our own website. Yes, that is right. We launched thursdaystheology.com, and I'm super, super excited for it because there is a lot of really, really great content on there. I've fallen in love with comic books in the past couple years, so I've been reading comics and doing theological reviews of comics. There's a podcast up there. There's some vlog episodes up there. So it's a really, really cool place to just see everything that we're up to, everything that we're doing, and please check it out. Support us, and just tell us what you think. It's thursdaystheology.com. That being said, for today's episode, we're going to continue tackling some of the different ologies of seminary and things that I've been picking up. And today we're actually going to be covering two that are very, very closely related to one another, and that is ecclesiology and missiology. Now, ecclesiology is just, again, a complicated way of saying it's the study of the church. It's basically how the church should be structured, how it should be governed, what are the things that the church needs to incorporate, etc., etc. Missiology is very, very closely related because that is the study of the mission of the church. So ecclesiology is the study of the church itself, and missiology is the study of the mission of the church. And we'll unpack that in just a second. But for ecclesiology, one of the interesting things about ecclesiology is that this helps people understand why there are different denominations. Now, the reason I say that is because depending on your ecclesiology, depending on your ecclesial structure, it'll depend on what type of denomination you are. So, for instance, the Anglican Church is a very, very top-down ecclesial structure. So you have the main person in charge that kind of tells all the other local churches, this is what we're about, this is what we're going to focus on, this is how you're supposed to be governed, etc. And then you have something, I'll just use the covenant denomination, the denomination I'm a part of as an example too. We are kind of in between a presbytery, which is we're led by conferences and the denominational offices in Chicago. So we're a combination of presbytery and congregational, meaning that each local church is more or less autonomous from the rest of the denomination. Now, the reason why it's kind of this weird in between is because in the covenant, the local church can decide how much a part of the covenant they want to be versus how much they don't want to be part of it. So it's kind of this weird in between. But that is because we have read the Bible and we have understood that our ecclesial structure is reflective of how we interpret the scripture. So sometimes you can have the Catholic or Anglican traditions that are very top down. Then you can have a Congregationalist, which is very, each church is independent and can run itself. So depending on your ecclesiology will depend on what type of church would be a good fit for you. So it's actually an important question to ask yourselves, especially if you're looking for a church, because when you start asking yourself, okay, how is this church structured? What's the participation like? Is it going to be a top down? Is it going to be a bottom up? All these are really important questions because depending on how you view that will depend very heavily on what denomination you choose to be a part of. So yeah, ecclesiology is one of those things that is kind of going on in the background when we search for churches, but again, it's kind of a complicated way of saying a simple thing, and that is it's just the study of how the church is structured. Now, missiology is the study of the mission of the church, and the mission is essentially exactly what it sounds like. It's what is the church's mission. That could be worldwide, that could be local, that could be statewide, it could be nationwide. It doesn't really matter what the focus is as long as it's incorporated as part of the mission of the church. Now, I would argue that the mission of the church should be local and global, but that's just my opinion. But missiology is the study of what the church's mission should be. Now, this one is very, very much up for debate in terms of how to apply it, because growing up, for the longest time, I thought that the mission field was overseas. I thought that in order to be engaged in mission activity, the church had to go to these far-off, exotic locations in order to bring the gospel to people who had never heard it before. But as I've gone through seminary and as I've grown up and as I've actually started my own pastoral ministry, I've realized more and more that each local church, even in the United States, each local church are in these neighborhoods. We are in these communities that we're called to be on mission for. And the mission of the church is, of course, to bring the good news of Jesus to the people around. So if you think about it like that, missiologically speaking, again, fancy word, missiologically speaking, there's not much difference between what you do in the community in terms of bringing Christ and what you do overseas in terms of bringing Christ. It's all hopefully leading to people coming to know who Jesus is. And if that's in the neighborhood or across the world, that is the mission of the church. So yeah, ecclesiology is the study of the church. Missiology is the study of the mission of the church, and both have a interesting connection between them, and very much inform each other. So yeah, that is what those two are. So thanks again for joining me for Thursday's Theology. My name is Jeff, and I'm your host. And remember, theology doesn't always have to be difficult. It is simply the study of who God is. Take care. We'll see you next week.